So there's a tremendous story, if you'd like to hear it, about his building of Holy Cross Church, back to Holy Cross.
Yes.
The answer to that is yes. We have not yet. He's on the list for episodes. We haven't done his story yet.
There is a book that I have that I don't know the title of it actually, because it's got rebound at St. Mary's College, the one I mentioned, in their bindery by probably some seminarian who got punished and had to go work in the bindery or something. And then and it's missing like the title page and like the first 8 or 9 pages. So you just jump into the story, and this is where the book where I read this story. So he was building churches around. He had already established the Sisters of Loretto, and he was very busy with their sort of continuing development. And so he got appointed to be the pastor of Holy Cross. And Holy Cross had that log church for a long time. It had burnt, and he was the pastor, and he was charged with building a new church. So him being a very outgoing, forthright, get it done sort of priest, and a very burly man himself, he apparently was working with the men of the parish out in the logging operation to secure the logs for said church. And so you can see the proportion of Holy Cross Church, and it's 200 years next year. The proportions are most definitely limited by the timber sizes that they could work with. You can tell that by looking at like St. Joseph Proto Cathedral over in Barstown was a little bigger. But they probably had either better timber skills or bigger equipment to utilize the timbers. But the timbers were all from right nearby, so they would have been working right in the area, and there were teams of horses drawing the logs out of the woods over to the church site, and that's where the story takes place. So he goes over and he's like, why in the world have we stopped? We need to move. This wagon needs to be down in there where we need logs. And so he was basically forcing the situation, wondering why things had slowed down. Because here he is walking up the hill to the job site, and everything stops. So he's not happy. He's very upset. And they're like, well, Father, the mules, they got spooked. So they're calming down. They're calming down, Father. And then he was like, well, move them. Do whatever you got to do. Get them moving. So he was getting upset, and they wouldn't. The mules wouldn't move. And so, but the wagon was loaded, and it's like, oh, it must be overloaded. So unload some of the logs. Like, no, Father, I think they're just spooked. Just let them be. Just you go join the men up on the hill there, cutting down trees. So he went up there, and then apparently one of the logs rolled down the hill and went right in front of the team of mules. And he's like, well, now we need to get down there and get them out of the way. They're already spooked. So he goes down there and he says, we're going to move this log and move the log. And they're like, oh no, the horses are still spooked. Leave them alone. And so he gets really upset. So he walks out of the distance and comes back, and they hadn't moved it. So he moved it himself. He just pushed the thing by himself. And then he's really frustrated. And as the story probably is, for just get to the point, Father. So then he goes back up the hill to join the logging crew. And all of a sudden, in the quiet, he hears at top volume an expletive yelled out. And the mules, boom, right down the road they go. So he was like, So he runs after the team of mules, stops the carriage, stops the mules, and yells at the I don't know, what do you call it, driver, to get off and on his knees beside the wagon. And you're thinking, what in the world? He said to him, he says, you must confess the sin of yelling that expletive out, and out here in public in front of all these people. You're just a bad example. And he was like, oh, sorry, Father. It's what got him motivated. He was like, no, I get it now. You wouldn't call out that word because you've trained those mules to only go on that word.
Oh my gosh.
So they were trying to not offend Father's pious ears. And when Father understood the circumstances, he made the man confess that he had trained his mules on a expletive curse word.
That's fantastic.
So that story comes down through the books from Father Charles Nerinckx.